Hi everyone, I'm preparing this video for the Unit 3 IP. So for the Unit 3 IP, you're going to see the chart that's available for you to download, and it looks like this. I've pasted it all together, so that's why you see this lump here. It's 1, describe the yarn size of each warp and filling as very thin, thin, very thick, etc. 2, describe each warp and fill as either a filament or staple fiber. 3, why do you think each is a staple or filament? 4, describe the ply of each warp and filling yarn as either a single ply, 2 ply, 3 ply, or cord yarn. 5, what is the TPI, which is a turns per inch, for each the warp and the fill. And then describe the aesthetics of the fabric and the contribution that the warp and fill yarns make to those aesthetics. Okay, using of course the proper terminology. And you're going to have another set with those same questions. Now that's the chart that you're going to be filling out to turn in. There is a mount chart available which you are welcome to use, and this mount chart is just something that you can use to download if you wish to put your warps as I have and your wefts as I have done here, so that you could see them side by side and decide what's thin, what's very thin, what's thick, medium, etc. The swatches that you will be using will be number 49, which is the antique satin, number 64, which is the drapery casement, it's this beige one, number 69, which is this brown and beige one, which is the transportation upholstery. Number 86 is right next to it, it's the pearl knit. Number 104 is the bonded knit fabric, which I will have a note about afterwards. And number 105, which is the Malamo. Okay, there's the Malamo. Notice all the little X's on it. And then number 119, which is the Sunbrella. It's the deep green one right here. Okay, so we are going to grab one. Okay, let's see, I'm gonna move my chart so it looks like this. I'm gonna show you how each one of them, you're gonna pull the warp and the weft on each one of these fabrics. So for example, over here for number 49, you're gonna pull out, and I'm gonna need a little assistance here. Okay, my assistant's gonna come and hold the camera so I can pull it out. Right there, thank you. Hold this, please. Okay, so here, for example, you're gonna pull out the warp. Okay, that's the warp. It's very thin. Okay, and then you're also going to pull out a weft. Okay, and each one, we're going to analyze each one of those separately and answer the questions for each one of these individually. That's number 49. Now, hold on. This one is number 64. And 64, it's the same thing. We're going to pull out, you're going to pull out these right here, which is the weft. And if you look in between the big square areas, you're going to notice that there's a little filling in between too. You may not be able to see it quite closely. Let's move over here to the magnifying glass and see if we could see it there a little bit better. See how in between you may see that there's a little very thin nylon. Okay, and if you pull it out, you won't be able to see it in my video. Probably there it is. It's very, very light right there in the middle. Okay, so that's also another weft. So you have this thick weft, and you have this little little one, which is also a thin one. And then of course you're going to pull out the warp, which is the vertical one right here as well. And look to see if you have more than one, because it looks like you may have some thick and some thin ones, or they may just be all the same. If they're all the same, you don't need to include each one. Hold on. And then we have, of course, this one, which is 69. Again, you're going to pull out the warp. Let's move here, the warp. Okay, and these look like they're about the same, except in different colors. If they're the same colors, you could just list one warp in a different color. If they're the same thickness, they're the same twist, then you just have to mark one on in your form. And then of course pull out the weft, which comes out from the bottom. So let's see how we have to answer these questions. I'm going to do that for number 64, but even before I continue with that, I want to mention this one, the pearl knit. The pearl knit, when you pull on it, go ahead and pull on it, you're going to notice that you can only pull out the weft. You can't pull out the warp because this is a filling weft knit. So if you're watching this video, you're going to get this hint that this is a filling weft knit, and therefore, or a filling knit, you are only going to have to fill out, I'm going to grab this here, you're only going to have to fill out the column for the weft or fill. Okay, you could just leave the warp alone because we don't need to fill it out. It's a weft knit, okay? So for each one, you're gonna see how many you need. Even when you get to the Malamo, go ahead and look at the Malamo, you're gonna notice that you have a weft, and then you have these warps here, which look like they're in different colors. And then you have these X's in between. And you have to pull them out and see if they're coming out from the warp or if they're coming out from the weft, all right? So that's what you're gonna do in order to fill out each one of these. Now, I'm gonna concentrate, okay, on doing this one right here. So I'm gonna untwist it and show you how it works. And I'm gonna need, again, my helper for this. So once you pull out each warp and weft, what you need to do is you need to, wait a minute, you need to put the warp on each one and then the weft, list them like this. So if you have more than one, like let's say the one I'm gonna pull out right now, it has more than one weft. So I'm gonna pull each one and I'm gonna paste them on my chart. Then I can individually look at them and say, oh, this is thin. Maybe this is thin. Well, this is really much thinner than this. So maybe this should be called very thin and this should be called thin. And what about this? Is this a medium? And is this thick? But what else do I have? Anything that's thicker? So then you can create your own scale. You should not be too far off from what I have, because if I have thin on mine and you have very thin, you're gonna get credit for it. But if I have thin on mine and you have thick, there's a clear difference because there are definitely some warps and wefts that are thick in this case. So let's take one of these apart so that we can see how we answer these questions. And I'm gonna have my little helper hold the camera here. Thank you. It's very good to have a helper because otherwise it's difficult to show this. And I'm taking this out from number 64. Number 64, okay? And I'm taking out the weft first. One of the weft, and it looks very blotchy, so I'm gonna move this camera. Move it here so it doesn't look so. Okay. This is a work in progress. You see it there? Okay. So I'm gonna take this